Welcome to Probate Weekly. I'm Bill Gross at Bill Gross Probate or BillGrossProbate.com on social media. ProbateWeekly.com is a weekly podcast I do, primarily interview. We try to interview top attorneys around the country, as well as vendors and practitioners in the business to help you build your real estate business, whether you're a real estate agent or investor or attorney. If you want to join the program, you're welcome to join ProbateWeekly.com. You can sign up. All we need is your email address, and you will get what am I, do I have the right things here? You'll get notifications. You can scroll down and see the audio formats or past episodes on YouTube. And if you want to continue the conversation on Facebook, we have a Facebook group, probateweekly.com. Love to have you join us there and participate. Really excited today to have as our guest this good-looking guy on the side here, Paul Rabalais, who is America's estate planning lawyer. And I think it's a unique opportunity for those of us who are building our businesses nationally to work with somebody like that. It's aeplawyers.com's website. And he is an estate planning lawyer that really services across the country. And I think as a real estate agent, we often get requests out of state for questions on estate planning and such. And Paul is a great resource for us. Paul, thanks so much for joining us today.
Yeah, excited to be here. Not a lot of shows really focused on the estate planning and focused on the probate. So happy to be a part of it.
Thank you. And I think in particular, the thing I try to emphasize, as real estate agents, we're always looking for more business. The key to that is how to become more valuable to our customers. One of the overlooked pieces is every house I've ever sold or looked to sell for a client, I knew how they held title. And if they had title in their names personally, I knew in California, for example, for sure, that's a mistake. They should have some sort of plan to handle the resources in case they pass incapacitated, which is inevitable, or for legal protection, and that's an estate plan. So every realtor that's called, this is your chance to learn a little bit about how you can bring value to your customers. And then when they say, well, who do I talk to? Which is a challenging question. We want to build up our local resources as well. But Paul is uniquely a national resource in this area for other states or in your service area, a good place to start with. So Paul, let's talk a little bit about what is the most common customer or client that comes to you for estate planning. What's that scenario look like?
If on the planning side, and we handle probate as well, although we don't handle probate around the country, but we certainly handle the planning part across the country. So I'd say that typical client of ours, and I've helped thousands of people over my 30 plus years of being an estate planning lawyer. But it's while we've handled a wide range of clients, if we had to break it down and say what's common, what's typical is that married couple, age-wise, maybe they're in their 50s, maybe their late 50s, maybe their 60s. They're starting to realize that they're not going to live forever. Perhaps they've accumulated some assets. They're thinking about retirement, or they're already in retirement. So time has flown by for that couple, and they realize, they've had some children perhaps, and maybe their children are starting to get married, or maybe they have grandchildren, and they realize, hey, we can't mess around anymore. We need to get our legal affairs in order. We want to make sure that when one of us passes, the survivor of us, things will be simple for them. We want to make sure that when we both pass away, the right people are in charge and things will go exactly like we want them to go for our family or for our loved ones. And then also, if we can't handle things for ourselves, if we get to a position where we can't sign to sell our home, we want to have all the legal plans in place so that our spouse or maybe a responsible adult child is all set up to be able to sell that home or transact that account in the event of your incapacity during your lifetime. So that's typically kind of what we see from an age range, from a net worth range. I'd say we're not the lawyer for the ultra high net worth people, those people with tens of millions on up. Our typical kind of bread and butter is maybe that client with a net worth of anywhere from maybe $1 million, and some people have as much as 10 million. Most of our clients fall in that range there. Often there's not estate tax considerations, but when they are, we're well equipped to handle that as well. So it's generally that couple or that individual. They're ready to get serious. They have some real estate, perhaps. They might have a home. They might have some rental property. They might have some property inside of LLCs. And they just want to set things up so that they can make things simple for their family, keep what they have in their family, eliminate as much kind of government intrusion as possible, and have that peace of mind that they know they've taken care of their family.
Geographically, what areas do you service and or what areas do you not service?
Yeah, so whenever we talk about how lawyers can provide legal services to people around the country, yeah, to some it appears tricky. Well, perhaps because it is, because lawyers are licensed in certain states. So because of my YouTube channel, which I created, and you've got a great platform here that you're using, Bill, but I too created a YouTube channel about 8 years ago and just started cranking out educational videos on estate planning. And and now it's somewhere around 700 or 800 videos, hundreds of thousands of subscribers, tens of millions of views on. And so as a result of that, I guess, popularity of the channel, we started getting requests from all over the country. Hey, Paul, can you help me? Paul, I watched your videos. Can you help me? Paul, kind of now I understand some things by watching your videos that I didn't understand before. Can you help me? So what we did, a little bit unique in our industry, is, I live in Louisiana. It's where I'm licensed to practice and have been for 30 plus years. So we created what we call our national co-counsel network. So we've kind of vetted attorneys in all of the different states around the country, except for a couple, Mississippi and Alabama, where their bar or lawyer rules are a little tricky. But in about 45 states, I've vetted lawyers. And so when someone from New York, Nevada, Florida, California, Tennessee contacts us, we do all of the work and we help them. And then at the end, we get our specific state co-counsel involved to review the client's objectives, review the client's documents that we prepared to ensure state compliance. So really, we help people all over the country.
Sorry, I'm hitting the mute button there because I've been battling a cough for a few weeks and at the tail end of it. So it sounds like the typical customer is the kind of person most of us realtors are working with, which are people in that $1 million to $10 million asset range, which is also, you own a house, you're going to be about that range in most parts of the country, and or, some additional savings and such. There's not a lot to get there. And we're talking about cases where people who are looking to buy houses should be thinking about this, as well as those that have them already around the country. It's not uncommon in my experience where somebody may move from one state to another and they have estate planning issues and have to have them reviewed. So I imagine part of your business must be, hey, I'm moving from New York to Florida and I'm buying a new house. I need to update my plan. But does the law apply and is the system still in place to protect me? Do you review plans that are done by other attorneys and or just redo new ones, or what's the process when people move from one state to another?
Yeah, and we see that a lot. It seems like just in the past few years, maybe it was a COVID thing, maybe it was an economy thing, but we do see a lot of people these days moving from one state to another. Maybe they're wanting to be closer to children and grandchildren, and children are scattered all over the country. So we do see we do get a lot of inquiries from people who are moving from one state to another. And maybe we get so many of those inquiries because we kind of marketed ourselves that way as America's estate planning lawyers, rather than Paul Rabelais' law office on the corner of the street. So yeah, and we recognize state laws are different, and we've done our research and we understand different rules on trusts and wills and powers of attorney, and we've created our own kind of document preparation system that is state specific. So if somebody moves from one state to another and we need to update their powers of attorney, for example, to comply with the rules of the state where that person moved, we're equipped to do all of that. So yeah, I do see people moving. Bill, do you see some of the kind of maybe more of that activity than maybe 10 or 20 years ago, of people kind of making that decision to move to another state? Are you seeing that a little more?
Well, our Governor Newsom, I think, is the man of the year at U-Haul, in that we lead the country in outbound U-Haul rentals, exceeding inbound. So what I've seen as a real estate agent is a lot of people selling homes and moving to Nevada, Arizona, Texas, Tennessee, some Florida. Not as much Florida here in California as maybe coming from the East Coast, but some to Florida as well. So definitely we see a lot of outbound. And as a real estate agent, I'm a listing agent, so that works for me. I know a lot of agents struggle because there's many buyers. So that's part of it. And I think that again, the reason why I've taken a big interest in estate planning is those people who don't have a plan at that stage of life for sure should be thinking about it. You're changing states, different laws, but they're also kind of accumulating all the resources. So if you're moving from California to, your next retirement home, hopefully in Nashville or Texas or wherever, good time to think about, well, what's everything we have? Where is it? And if we're incapacitated, who's going to help us through this, or who do we want to help in the next generation? So that's why I've taken a real keen interest in this
and
topic.
I think there's one area, you talked earlier about where agents can help is, agents who are kind of willing to provide maybe a little more than the standard level of service, but want to get ahead of the game and want to provide value to clients is really as an agent may meet a potential client, a potential homeowner. I think the agent can provide great value by saying, hey, homeowner, let's not just focus on this existing home that you have or you're looking to purchase, but let's make sure that all of your real estate is titled correctly. And a lot of homeowners and property owners, their home should be in their trust if they have a trust, or their rental property should be in an LLC to get that maximum liability protection. So I think that's an area where an agent can provide a lot of additional value to clients just by kind of taking a look at the overall, how is the real estate titled, how is it owned, and do we need to clean that up? And I feel like if an agent provided that service, that would go a long way toward providing value to those potential clients that they may have.
Well, and hence why I do this channel, why I've interviewed you, 100%. I feel like I've been, I want to advocate real estate agents. The way you get more business is be more valuable to your customers. What do? You can have fancier, cookies at your open houses or fancier balloons, or you can, when somebody says they're thinking of selling their house, you could make sure that you rally the professionals to help them and say, well, what is your plan? What happened? How long are you going to be moving this next house? Who's affected by it? What are your plans if somebody's incapacitated? And so I think for real estate agents, I really encourage everybody, we have access to public records. You can look up the titling of the house and see, do they have it in a trust already or not? If they don't, great question to ask. I think every seller I've ever talked to, at least when they ask the question, are you familiar with the advantages of a proper estate plan? They always say, well, what do you mean? Or tell me more. And they're interested in that question. When they're buying a house, it's a great time to ask that question. You might throw in a discount on an estate plan or pay for a free appointment with an attorney of your choice, because if they're buying the property, why not get it titled in a trust in the first place, rather than later deed it in and hope it gets deeded improperly and that's not an insured deed and those potential problems. So you're 100% right, and that's why we do this. One of the things I also encourage agents to do is check public records, because you mentioned this, and this happened to me. I've had customers who had a estate plan and had 5 properties, and 3 were in the trust and 2 were never titled in the trust. In public records, I could pull up all those properties and say, hey, by the way, notice this is or this is not. And additionally, for all the agents on the call, if you have a client you refer for estate planning, pull the deeds and give them to your customer to bring the attorney. That way, there we have the legal description, the parcel number, and all that, just to expedite matters. And it also creates value, and it's a good opportunity to introduce yourself to the attorney. So let's talk a little bit about that, Paul. I think that real estate agents imagine that attorneys like you sit in your office handing out referrals for real estate like Santa Claus handing out candy canes at the mall in December. I don't think it's quite that way. My experience has been that as much business as goes out or more comes in from real estate agents. Is referrals from real estate agents part of your business currently? Is that where you see people, being prompted to come to see you? Not enough. Not enough, I can say for.
Yeah, it's yeah. Over the years, I work with a lot of lawyers. I know a lot of agents. I don't see a lot of business being referred back and forth, maybe because I haven't really been proactive
Mm,
in attempting to really establish those relationships with the real estate community. Really, a lot of the kind of referral resources that I have are more on the kind of financial planning side, where those holistic wealth managers are needing, services from people like myself to help their clients. But no, I mean, agents are in a relationship business, lawyers are in a relationship business. So to the extent, I know you're on LinkedIn. One thing that I do, another thing that I suggest that agents do is LinkedIn. And I don't know if I'm going off topic here, but LinkedIn makes it real easy for people to start a newsletter for free.
mm,
And so you can make it a monthly newsletter, a weekly newsletter, a daily newsletter. They make it real easy for all of your LinkedIn connections to subscribe to your LinkedIn newsletter.
yep.
So I can't think of anything better than a real estate agent, establishing relationships with attorneys and other professionals, start that newsletter, and then that real estate professional can really help educate the legal community, the financial community about those nuances that are involved in real estate transactions. So again, just more of a, I mean, I'm a big fan of using the social media networks for free. I'm a big
Mm.
fan of that, and maximizing relationships that way. So I have seen a lot of referrals and business development as a result. Now you got to be proactive and you got to create content, just like you're doing, Bill. You're doing a fantastic job educating others in your various podcasts and your channels. But I do see that working with people in all kind of professional service industries. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, first off, I would say any input you have is on point because you are, after all, America's estate planning attorney. So if you have input, I'm glad, anxious to hear it. Second, I agree with you about LinkedIn. In fact, I encourage agents to do an email newsletter every week, and you can repurpose the same content in your email newsletter by almost copying and pasting it. You have to clean up a little bit to put it on LinkedIn to leverage the work you've already done. And then I would say, and then record that video of that newsletter and put that on your YouTube channel. Now you have the same content in 5 places. I think you're 100% right on your point. I also think that, different markets are different. I know you're in Louisiana. California is the most litigious state. So those agents on the call here in California, you're going to have more of a tighter relationship with the attorney than Paul will in other markets. Why? Because in California, there's more litigation regarding probate and real estate in general. And so we have more chances to work with them than other areas. But don't miss what he said, which is maybe instead of, if you're not in California, you should be focusing on wealth management. I don't do that here in California because, again, we're so litigious. Those people almost have a wall between talking to me and their customers. So I go through the attorney. But in other states, I know that one of the powerful ways to get business is through wealth managers, and they connect with attorneys. And so I would agree 100% with you there that, but again, real estate is a very local business. And so it varies by market, and we have to be appropriate. We got a question. Now, for those of you on the call, we moved this from YouTube broadcast to Zoom for the purpose of your participation. I'm a real estate broker every day. I sell houses. I listed an estate worth of listings this week, 10 properties for about $10 million. I work at this every day. I'm not selling coaching. I'm not selling data. I'm going to sell you on building your business. And so the reason we do this call is for you to be able to improve your skills and your relationships. Here you have one of the top attorneys in America. It's your chance to ask questions. I'm glad to ask a question in the chat box. Brandon, if you're interested, or anybody, raise your hand. I'd be more glad to call on you and ask questions directly, because I think it's very valuable, that personal interaction. Brandon, if you want to join in, raise your hand and I'll unmute you and bring you in on the video as well. But he says he's focusing on listings, which is a real estate agent. I don't think non-realtors understand that's the real business, is listing, not working with the buyer side for the most part. His question is, can you give some insight on how to build relationships with attorneys? So, Paul, if you had a nephew or a son looking to start in real estate who wanted to work with estate planning attorneys or wealth managers, what would you recommend them to do? Now, you mentioned social media and a newsletter, which is great, obviously, both for referral sources and the general public. Is there anything specifically you'd recommend for somebody who would focus on developing relations with attorneys?
Well, from my perspective, I am an attorney. I value information. value education. I'm learning every day. I don't know everything. I certainly don't know, even as an estate planning attorney, I don't know everything about the real estate industry. And so I'm always looking to increase the kind of my knowledge and my skill set. And so even if someone's a new real estate agent, that new real estate agent is kind of in it all day, every day. They're having to deal with purchase agreements, and they go to the occasional closing, and they're in on the conversations with more experienced real estate agents. And so as an estate planning attorney or as an attorney, I'm not in that area all day, every day. And so at best, I hear little bits and pieces. So if there was someone in the real estate industry who could educate me and just keep kind of dripping information on me to improve my skill set, because I have clients who might come to me and say, Paul, you did my estate plan. I'm selling my house. I'm moving across town. Not my clients aren't asking me, Paul, can you give me the name and number of an agent? They're not asking me that. But if an agent provided me with nuggets of information and I could somehow pass that along to the client, then maybe I voluntarily say, hey, I got this information from so and so, and it was valuable, and kind of he's helped me increase my skill set. So I think in this day and age, as easy as it is to educate based on social media, and you can do it all for free, as Bill and I know, because we've posted and posted. I really think even if you're just getting started, you have information because you're in it all day, every day, that you can provide to attorneys, accountants, investment professionals, other people who are seeing people who are trying to buy and sell real estate. So I think the more you can just drip and have a just consistent little tidbits of information, build your list, whether that's on LinkedIn or whether you do it through YouTube or whatever, and just start becoming an expert, and it doesn't take much to make it appear that you're an expert, even if you've only been in the business for 3 months or 6 months. Proactively seek out the best information that you can find, provide it to others, and there's no doubt that over time you may have to be patient, and you're not going to have success overnight. But that's how, quite frankly, I've built my business, is through that. And I didn't coin this term, education-based marketing, just continuing to provide education, being of value to people. Social media will leverage your ability to not only educate people one at a time, but educate 1,000 people at a time with the same effort as you would one at a time. So yeah, the nicer balloons, the bigger sign, the nicer chocolate chip cookies that smell better. To me, I've never felt like that's anywhere near as effective as providing valuable information to people who may be able to provide you with business. So I'm just, again, I'm kind of repeating myself, but I think that providing education
Yeah.
is the best thing that you can do. Even if you're a business, you're going to be running across other people with value, and you just need to share it with them.
And I also think we have a unique opportunity. I've been in this business for 38 years, and we are completely upending the relationship between sellers and the buyer's agent, and the sellers and buyers. And I know that even as a practitioner in the business every day, it's changing so quickly. I don't know all the nuances. I'm every day learning about it, but I'm also sharing with my attorneys. I recently listed property, and my attorneys requested certain verbiage in the MLS that specifically is prohibited by the MLS. I'd be fined if I use those words. I explained to them, it makes sense to put that in there. It might even be legally correct to protect your client for me to put that in there. But if I put that in there, the MLS is going to take it out and fine me, because they don't want any verbiage discussing compensation in the MLS. Where even verbiage that might say, we won't pay any compensation, is prohibited in the MLS. And so I think that as realtors, we have a chance to educate our clients, including attorneys, because when an attorney now, as Paul said, he's not often going to, get asked who's the best realtor and who has the best chocolate chip cookies. But if it's a probate or it's a contested matter of some sort, one thing attorneys want to do is avoid being sued. They want to avoid having their clients being sued. And this is a real risk that if it's not handled properly. Potentially a buyer or a buyer's agent can come back to the seller and say, you didn't treat me fairly. And nobody wants to evolve in that today. Everybody's very sensitive to that. So there's one topic for sure on top of the normal topics of real estate and such.
And I don't know what it's like in California, but I know in Louisiana, we have, I call it the standard real estate purchase agreement. It's kind of the fill in the blank purchase agreement that everybody uses when they're buying and selling homes. And so I kind of feel like if I was an agent, instead of focusing on the cookies and the water and all that, maybe I would become an expert in my state's purchase agreement.
Yes.
I mean, I've dealt with realtors who have been in the business for 20 or 30 years, and I think many of them don't have any idea what those purchase agreements say when you look at it closely. Yeah, they're used to filling in the blanks and trying to make everything fit on the purchase agreement. And there's the 7 or 8 blank lines where you say, the washer and dryer stays and all that. But those documents are crucial. And you don't know how crucial they are until there's a problem, until a seller tries to back out, and you have to look at the penalty provision in that purchase agreement.
Right.
So I feel like that's just one small area where a realtor can provide value to consumers, to professionals, is kind of let's break down that purchase agreement and let me educate as many people as I can as to what the provisions are of the purchase agreement if the seller attempts to back out. So there's a lot of things, even though agents aren't lawyers and can't render legal advice. There are ways that agents can educate their referral community and their business community. And so I just think, and as you said earlier, and this better than I do, it looks like the realtor business is being turned upside down with developments in the last few months. And I think realtors are going to be, it's all part of, I think, realtors being held to a higher standard. And so I think, things like that, educating and just becoming a little niche expert, and then educating others, I think, over the long haul, I think would be fantastic.
Yeah. And in California, we rolled out new forms to accommodate the major settlements as far as we understand them. And our company has separate forms as well. And you could either use one or both of those to educate your market. And I think in particular, attorneys appreciate that type of marketing more than anybody else. When somebody says, how do I market attorneys? Give them the information that they think is important, which is ultimately, I think, how to protect their clients, and how to avoid litigation. There's nothing an attorney hates more than leading their client into some other litigation or some other problem.
Yeah.
And our job is to help them avoid that.
And the timing, what a great opportunity with the industry in a state of change, in a little bit of a state of flux. I mean, I would love for one or more realtors to send me something that says, okay, Paul, our industry has been turned upside down. Here's the 5 things you need to know that have changed in the last year about how our industry will work in the future. So that's something I would read. That would be something like I'd pay attention to who sent me that. And so if you can do that 1,000 times over, 5,000 times over, that's gonna pay back in spades. So what a tremendous opportunity. It's just like us when the estate tax law changes. I feel like, wow, what an opportunity to educate the public about what these changes are. And if those people who view my content have a need, they're going to want to contact me because I provided that value, and people like to reciprocate when they can. Right. So if a realtor does send me information that's valuable to me, I don't know if they'll be my realtor on my next home, but at least I would consider it more so than if they didn't provide me with information. So I think the timing right now is fantastic for realtors to get ahead of the curve.
Yeah, I would agree 100%. You know, I think like in sports, we think of transitions, like when you're going down court on defense, you get the ball, you turn around right away to run an offense. It's called transition, or in soccer or in football. And I think in business as well, there's certain transitional opportunities that you can really jump ahead of the competition. You know, we have an election season. There's a lot of tension about the economy in general, but in particular in real estate, we have a generational opportunity where we're changing the way we do business. And Paul's point's right on. Most realtors have not even read the form. It's shocking to me. Even when I deal with I deal with a broker. I don't want to say the name of the company, of the largest brokerage at the time in Beverly Hills, California, with 500 agents, and we were talking about the penalty clause, specifically the contract, and I said, but it doesn't say that. You have to read the. It's not that I wrote a contract; it's the default language. Doesn't say that, and you kept arguing with me, and I just in my email copied and pasted the verbiage from the contract. This is what it says. Like, we're not arguing. You're just not reading what the English language is saying to you and screaming at top of its lungs. So most agents don't read this. This is your opportunity to, one, be that expert, and then two, share with the market that you can see in talking to Paul, hungry for how does this affect my clients? How does it affect my practice? How do I avoid problems? How do I avoid having a sale, canceled or objected to? You can have a case where two parties are arguing about a real estate, even in non-litigious states, and the objector could say, hey, this contract violates the new settlement, and you expose us to potential litigation. And a judge is going to be very sympathetic to that argument. So you want to be able to arm your clients with the ways to avoid that, or the way to undermine the sale if that's their goal, what the attorney's hired to do.
Yeah. Yeah. So I used the example as a seller backing out because that happened to me one time. I was purchasing a home for my family 10 years ago or so. And, I had the realtor who had been in the business for 25 years. She knew everybody. And so we signed our purchase agreement, and the seller said, I think I'm going to back out of the sale. My wife doesn't want to sell. So I asked my agent, I said, what rights do we have? We have a signed purchase agreement, and now the seller just wants to back out. And she had no idea what my rights were. So as a lawyer, I, of course, knew what to do. Go back to the purchase agreement. Purchase agreement said that if the seller backs out, then we could hold the seller liable for, I think it was 10% of the purchase price, or force them, in court to sell the property. But my agent had no idea. And so, needless to say, that's, not my agent anymore. But, I feel like that particular agent didn't do their homework. Yeah, was probably a very good marketer, and probably had great cookies and great water, but
The great
lost out
Instagram.
on future sales for me because they didn't do their homework. And I'm sure she was not alone. I'm sure it's not fun for many real estate agents to read and try to understand legal agreements like a purchase agreement, but it's just one of those areas where you can get ahead if you make the attempt.
I agree. Hey, a little housekeeping. If you're watching live on the Zoom, love to have you participate. Raise your hand, put a question in the chat box. That's why we moved this from a YouTube to a Zoom channel, to have you have the opportunity to speak directly with the guests, in this case, one of the leading attorneys in estate planning in our country. So if you're interested, raise your hand, put a question in the chat box. If you're shy, put it in the chat box as well, and we'll catch you. This is going to be restreamed onto YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, and all the social media channels. If you watch it after the fact, again, ask questions, and we'll get back to that in an appropriate manner. This is Probate Weekly. We do this every Thursday, live on the Zoom call at 9 a.m. Pacific, 12 noon Eastern time. You can sign up at probateweekly.com. All we need is your email and register, and you'll get the link to join us via Zoom. You also have a link. You can join us via your favorite audio version of the podcast, or past episodes are all posted on YouTube. And we have different interviews with attorneys and vendors and such that I think will help you as you build your real estate business. We continue the conversation in Facebook. Our Facebook group is Probate Weekly, cleverly named myself. I'll go to Facebook, and the group is Probate Weekly, and there we post content regarded past episodes and clips. And this week, I want to add in there, specifically as a real estate agent or investor, if you come across an abandoned property, a property that you go, wow, nobody's been here, it's overgrown, I'd love to list this property, as a simple form that we can work on together. I can do some research. I have some research assistants that will pull it up and we can talk about maybe finding a game plan for you. So take a look at the Facebook group for the abandoned property link if you want to participate there as well. And then again, our guest today is Paul Rabalais, America's Estate Planning Lawyers. AEPlawyers.com is the website. We're excited to have him. He is one of the leading, you heard the number, thousands of estate plans across the country. He's a national resource for agents all around the country. Okay, so I got one hand up. Doug, if you want to unmute, I'd love to have you come in. And if you want to turn on your video, we'll bring you in video. In the meantime, question from Will Foster, where's the line between educating and practicing law? Now, I know the answer to that's going to vary by state, but Paul, where do you see and you have that same challenge, right? You're not giving legal advice in your education.
Yeah.
And there's realtors as well. Where do you see the line between educating and practicing law?
Yeah, it's a tough one because I always, we can look at the particular statute in a state on what is the unauthorized practice of law. Every state has their own rules, but I think the intent behind those statutes is they don't want someone saying they're a lawyer, creating that one-on-one kind of attorney-client relationship. They certainly don't want people going to court on others' behalf, but that's obvious. You can't show up in court, say you're an attorney and you're not. But I feel like there's a line drawn between speaking individually to one person and advising that one person based on a particular transaction that is taking place and providing legal advice, versus what Bill and I have been talking about throughout the whole podcast is having content that some of which, may be the content that you provide, maybe looking at a particular provision in a purchase agreement, for example, and talking about how that provision gets applied. But when you send that content to the masses of people, and it's not a one-on-one relationship where you look like you're acting as an attorney or a legal advisor to one person in one particular situation, I've never seen anyone get in trouble or be prosecuted under some unauthorized practice of law statute for using social media just in an attempt to educate the kind of the masses or dozens or hundreds or thousands of people at a time, even if some of that content is based on the legal effect of a court case or a provision in a purchase agreement or in some other legal document. So I think I think the line is drawn where you need to be careful is when you're talking one-on-one with somebody and they really want to understand the legal consequences of something. You may be crossing the line by, giving them legal advice that they rely on. That's different. That's where you need to be careful versus let me just educate my list on things that I think they should know, but it's not in a one-on-one relationship.
Excellent. I love that answer, the one part. And I would just maybe add, as a realtor in California, where we're a little more litigious, I'm always careful to say I'm not giving legal advice, but I can give business advice. And so sometimes there'll be a situation where, to me, it's obvious they're getting bad legal advice. And I can say, well, I can't speak to the law. But what I can say is if you've filed your probate and it's been a year and you still don't have authority, from a business point of view, there's something really wrong. Unless it's an outstanding objection or a very unusual litigious matter. There's no reason why it should take that long from a business point of view. And so you'd be very careful that we're allowed to give business advice. We're not allowed to give as real estate agents, so specifically legal advice. Doug Converse, regular to our program, has his hand up. Doug, let's bring you in. How can we help you? What question do you have?
Well, first of all, Paul, I want to say thank you. I've got several takeaways, and the weekly newsletter, that's a great idea. Thank you for saying that. That's just good. I'm going to put that to use right away. And I wanted to confirm what your website is. Is it apelawyers.com?
AEP. So like it stands for America's Estate Planning, and then the word lawyers, AEPlawyers.com.
Okay, thank you. And also, I Upon establishing a relationship with an attorney and making the initial phone call to the office, do you have any recommendations on how to deliver value on the introductory call?
That's a tough one because us lawyers, we in some form we sell our time, and people that we don't know are contacting us on a daily basis, whether by email or telephone, to try to sell us something. It's just the nature of the business that we're in. I like using social media, and I'll go back to my example. Maybe ask them to form a relationship on LinkedIn, and I'm going to go back to since it was the first thing you said. And I just discovered this through LinkedIn a few years ago. If you have a number of LinkedIn contacts or relationships, or I don't even know what they call it, then when you put your first article up, that's part of your newsletter, when you put it out there, LinkedIn will automatically invite all of your contacts to subscribe to your newsletter. So if you're not established on LinkedIn, you only have a couple of connections, you may want to work on building up those connections, because you really only get that one shot for LinkedIn to invite all of your connections to subscribe to your newsletter. So I think it's as opposed to just calling individual attorneys one at a time. I hate to say this, but I generally would be kind of reluctant to take that call unless for some reason I felt like there was some value in taking it. I would probably go on a bigger scale, and instead of trying to call one, I might invite 100 to connect with me on LinkedIn, and maybe 50 of those will. And then you invite them to subscribe to your newsletter and provide them with value, and then maybe it's appropriate to make that call because you provided them some value already. And that call could be, hey, I'm Douglas, and I understand you're a subscriber to my newsletter. Just wanted to see if there was any other information that you'd like to provide as an attorney that I could help with from the real estate industry. So, but it's hard just to make those kind of cold calls from the get-go with no relationship. So maybe form a LinkedIn or a relationship on some other platform, and then the call, I think, would be much more welcome.
That's beautiful. Thank you, Paul. And what do you think of emailing a resume to an attorney's office?
Well, what would the goal be in doing that?
A way of letting them see what my background is, because I have a pretty unusual, pretty extensive background.
Yeah. Well, if someone were to send a resume to me, first thing I would think is they're looking for a job. And I realize, you're kind of looking for business. But if a realtor were to send a resume to me, that really doesn't provide any value to me. I have no incentive to review that resume, to have a conversation with the realtor. Maybe from a selfish perspective, instead of a resume, send something of value. Maybe a resume along with look, here's 10 things an attorney should know now that our real estate industry is changing. Now, that's something I'd read, and I'd want to know, and I'd want to know who sent me that. So the resume, not necessarily, but maybe the resume or something of value that I can use to make myself a better attorney is something I'd read and review, and maybe even act upon more so than just a resume.
Okay, that's great, Paul. Thank you so much.
Sure.
I want to just acknowledge some gold you gave there, which, I've heard attorneys like you say this over the last few years as I've been doing these, and it never really stuck to me until you said it, which is LinkedIn. As a business person, as a, father and grandfather, I would never go on LinkedIn. I just don't have anything on there of value other than every attorney that I like to do business with is on there and active, and the vendors that work with them. And so I guess I would say it's kind of like the hangout at the Bar Association Network. It seems that almost every attorney I want to work with, that's their social media platform of preference for business matters. And for all those listening, Douglas talked about his resume. make sure your LinkedIn profile is up to date. Make sure you have a proper picture and background. And if you have good experience, that's on and up to date, and your content is linkable there, because it is amazing to me. Again, I would never use LinkedIn other than every attorney and the vendors and service attorneys. That seems to be the primary place of hanging out, or at least I don't hang out with them on Facebook or Instagram, because I don't hang out on Facebook, Instagram, but that's where we do business. And so that's gold, Paul. I guess I've heard that advice probably only 50 times and just sunk in, but
Yeah, me too.
a chance to talk to an attorney like you there is more valuable than mailing a resume. I could say, hey, I saw you on, I saw you on this podcast, and I've done that with other attorneys. I saw you as podcast on this topic, and I have a question, and they like to answer questions or to show their professional expertise. And so as long as, people ask me questions all the time, what would attorneys say? I always tell them, go ask them directly. And I just thought about, well, yeah, find them on LinkedIn where they've posted something and ask the question there. They would love that engagement, and they get the eyeballs and all that. So Paul, that's just pure gold. Thank you for sharing that with us.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Yeah, LinkedIn's big. Yeah, especially for us lawyers. It's kind of like our digital business card is what it is.
It really is. And
Yeah,
there's
is.
no other, as being a real estate, I deal with so many different industries. That's not true for, at least that I'm aware of, other than technology and corporate employees. Like if you work at a big corporation, my daughter works for TJ Maxx, for example, when they're looking for a job, that's where they hang out, right? Only for job placement and changes.
But it's much more than a job site.
For attorneys. For attorneys in particular, not for realtors, but for attorneys in particular. And if you want to do business with attorneys, that's the place to go. And I'm saying to myself, gosh, I've just ignored it. Even still, I have a newsletter. To your point, I take my email I do every week and I repurpose it onto LinkedIn. In fact, let me bring it up real quick. I'll show you guys what I do with it.
Yeah, that repurpose word is big. If you make something on one platform like YouTube, throw it everywhere else, and that makes it so much more effective.
I do this same email every single week and I mail out to my client database. But then all we do is repurpose it by putting into LinkedIn's newsletter, copy paste the video thumbnail, copy the links to the video and the email, copy the text from that email. So all this shouldn't look nice. It shouldn't be halfway. But basically, this is the same piece I'm already emailing out to my database. And I have 1,200 subscribers, 300 subscribers, and people respond to it. Attorneys will send me a note on it. And I'm always like, oh my gosh, they replied to me on LinkedIn. I don't even check my LinkedIn box often enough, and now I make a point of doing it regularly. So that is, Paul, thank you. That's pure gold. One topic I wanted to ask you about that I'm not sure how active it is in your neck of the woods. Again, in California, we're the most litigious state, I think. So we come across every edge case. But elder abuse, people who, mom is sick and one of the children has been the caregiver for years, and all of a sudden out of the blue, mom signs a estate plan that gives everything to the caregiver child. Either there's a power of attorney form, or there's a will, or this kind of hastily done, or maybe even a full trust or something like that. And then the question is, well, what was mom's capacity and how did that get checked, signatures, and lots. So do you see that happening? And what are one or two things that you might advise, being realtors, we deal with our customers all the time, you might advise us to be on the lookout for to help protect our customers?
Yeah, it's always sad. We see a lot of power of attorney abuse. Mom signs a power of attorney authorizing daughter to act for mom. And then, mom's capacity starts to diminish. And then daughter uses the power of attorney to clean out mom's bank account, sell mom's home that's been in the family for 50 years. And so that's a tough one. Kind of the mistake I see on the planning side is when people create an estate plan, an individual or a couple, they have to make several designations of who's going to do stuff for them in the future. So for example, if they set up their living trust and they put their house in it, they're going to designate that couple or that individual is going to designate in their trust. Okay, when we pass away, who's going to be the trustee of the trust to sell the home, divide up the trust assets among the beneficiaries. And that's often maybe one of the first designations that gets determined because the trust is what's on people's mind. But then there's other designations. Okay, there's the if mom becomes incapacitated, who does mom want handling things during mom's lifetime if she's incapacitated? And the big mistake that I see the moms out there making is mom will say, well, I appointed Johnny as the successor trustee of my trust because Johnny's responsible, Johnny communicates well with the family, Johnny has great attention to detail, Johnny will be perfect for that role. Oh, I need to also designate somebody to have power of attorney for me. Well, I haven't given Susie a job. And yeah, I mean, Susie was in rehab last year, but I don't want to hurt her feelings by appointing Johnny to do everything and not appointing Susie to do something. So let's give Susie that power of attorney role. And so the big mistake that I see people make is they make some of these decisions in their estate planning because they're concerned about the feelings that might get hurt. And so that's not how estate planning decisions should be made. Estate planning decisions are all about what's in the best interest of my family, what's in the best interest of, the overall best interest of my children. And so when you started asking the question, Bill, about abuse and elderly abuse, sure, some people are manipulating their parents into signing wills and trusts that maybe they should not have signed. But I think the bigger abuse out there is this power of attorney abuse. So really, when agents are talking to their clients about who they designated to handle things, and yeah, if you're going to go out of the country, client, and your house needs to be sold, who's going to take care of that? You want to kind of guide those clients to making sure that the person who is most capable of filling your shoes will do that, not the person whose feelings might get hurt if you don't designate them. So these appointments of trustee, executor, power of attorney agent, durable power of attorney, they become critical. And so maybe my point is emphasize to those clients how important it is to designate the right people to fill those positions, because they have tremendous power, and you want to make sure those people you designate have loyalty and honesty and integrity and are going to do the right thing.
And I think you are describing the distinction between getting a cheap online plan versus talking to an attorney, because the online plan doesn't care. Whatever you fill in is whatever you fill in, and your feelings then are going to be more important. Whereas when you do it in front of an attorney, I think the attorney's job is to ask that question: are you sure you would marry just out of rehab to be the power of attorney just because she's going to feel left out? Can we maybe find some other way to help her feel engaged in the process and keep Johnny his hands firmly on the steering wheel and the brake pedals? And that's where an attorney comes involved versus just an estate plan. And I think sometimes as realtors, similarly, I always say, if you could buy a house online, Google and Facebook would sell the houses. Customers want and need that personal interaction, the person who cares about them and has the courage to tell them when they're making mistakes. And I think that's where the attorney creates the value, is at least stopping and asking the question, hey, hold on 1 second here. Have you considered this? And in your case, you've seen the consequences of those mistakes over and over again, right? As realtors,
and
you may see it.
Us agents and attorneys, we at least most of us have 2 ears and 1 mouth. So we get to listen. Listening to what our clients are telling us is really important. And yeah, obviously you don't get that with an online experience. So that's part of our role, both agents and attorneys, is to listen to what how the clients are answering our questions, so that we can ask the next right questions. So there's a lot of value there, and people understand that.
So just kind of a last question, because we're coming up at the end of our time, and I really appreciate your time with us today. I want to talk about your YouTube channel, because you've really built, I think, a great resource for me as an agent to educate myself. Also, as me trying to build my YouTube channel as an example of what to do. Everybody's an example of what to do and what not to do. In your case, you're an example of what to do. Talk a little bit about your strategy when you set out, and then what is the goal of your YouTube channel today as it relates to your business?
Yeah. So, one word comes to mind when you ask what is the goal of my channel. Educate comes to mind. And maybe if I was really kind of sneaky, I would say the goal of my channel is to sell. and to get people to contact me and request our services. But you don't get people to contact you and request your services by saying, call me, my telephone number is. You get people to call you and request your services by providing value to them. So that's what the education is. It's the value. And really, what I would suggest for a realtor is do exactly what I did. I'm in my business all day, every day. Issues are coming up in my business all day, every day. And as an issue comes up in my mind, I go, you know what? I bet other people would like to be aware of this issue that I just had to deal with a client. And let me share that in a proper way, confidentially, of course. But let me share the concepts there with the rest of America. And so that's all I did. And really in my videos, I never say call me. I never say my phone number is. I never say go to my website to sign up for something. I just say, I'm Paul Rabalais. I'm an estate planning attorney. And in this video, I want to tell you about this. So I tell them what I'm going to tell them, and then I tell them, and then I tell them what I told them, and I end the video. And so that's I think been the main reason why I had the growth in my YouTube channel like I did, because no one likes to be sold to, but people do like to buy, and people do like to reciprocate. So that's my advice, is take those little nuggets of information that you're getting in a daily basis because you're in the business, and then convey that experience with the rest of the world, and I think you'll be starting something special there.
Well, Paul, it's a pleasure having you again today, and a pleasure having you on the podcast today. You've been a real great education source for us. Again, Paul Rabalais, America's Estate Planning Lawyers, AEPlawyers.com for more information, as well as his YouTube channel. I put the link there as well. He's America's Estate Planning Lawyers on YouTube as well. I really appreciate you coming in, educating us, sharing with us today your business, your strategies and such, and look forward to speaking again soon. Paul, thank you so much. Yeah, I think he froze up on that.
Thank you. Good to be here, Bill. Thank you.
Thanks so much. And for the rest of you, this is Probate Weekly. We do this every Thursday, 9 a.m. Pacific time, our new time, 9 a.m. Pacific time. Love to have you join us for that. And let's see here real quick. If you want to join, go to probateweekly.com. Put your email. You get the link to come in Zoom if you want to. You also can scroll down and catch us on the other audio formats, as well as YouTube and past episodes. Continue the conversation on Facebook at probateweekly.com. On Facebook, we'd love to have you join us there. Thank you, everybody. Have a great week. Paul, thanks again so much.